Hey everyone, I'm Mike. I'm an aspiring mangaka and concept artist, and welcome to my channel. So in today's video, I'm going to be going over 6 different things that are halting your art progress. Make sure you stick around all the way to the end, because number 6, I'm going to give you a tip on how you can progress without even picking up a pencil. Alright, let's get started. Alrighty, so number 1, only practicing what makes you happy. So before you jump off the video and get mad, I want to make a distinction between progress and enjoyment. So you should always enjoy art, right? That's why we started in the first place. But if we're talking about progress, which is the main topic of this video, you can't improve if you're just doing things that you find fun or that you already know. You aren't going to make progress this way, right? It's almost as if you were in school and you were supposed to be learning algebra, but instead you just kept going over multiplication tables. You aren't going to get better at algebra that way unless you didn't know multiplication tables in the first place, but that's a different story. Sure, it might solidify what you already know, but it's just not giving you a new input of information. So for art, you should just set aside time each week to practice things that make you feel uncomfortable and learn from them. You should also continue to set aside times for things that you really enjoy within the art world so you can kind of refill your battery. Number 2, refusing to use reference. I'm not going to go over this too much because I've talked about it so many times in the past, but using reference isn't cheating, and it's also the only way we can really learn. If you aren't using references to help you draw, you're only drawing things that you think are correct. And our brains are not perfect, right? It's really difficult to develop a great image of something we've only observed a few times. For instance, if I asked you to pick up a pencil and draw a perfect jackfruit without reference, some of you might succeed slightly at this, but I would probably think that most of you might not even really know what a jackfruit is. So this is especially true for like manga, for instance. If you're trying to draw an impossibly hard pose and you just rely on your imagination, it's going to look pretty rough at first, right? And in reality, it's going to look rough regardless. So don't let anyone out there tell you otherwise. Use references, learn, and grow. Number 3, thinking that you have mastered a skill. There are fundamentals out there that we all have to practice as artists and we all have to know. Don't make the mistake of thinking once you've gone over it a few times or once you've practiced it for a couple of weeks that you've now mastered those particular fundamentals. You don't have to practice them anymore. There is nothing that will block your progress more than becoming complacent in your work. You constantly have to learn more about perspective, anatomy, gesture, shading, etc. No one's perfect at it. So look at Mark Brunet, for instance. His YouTube channel has blown up over the past few years. His art's absolutely beautiful, but if you were to ask him what he works on the most or what he needs the most improvement on, he would more than likely say things like anatomy and gesture. And that's because he's still hungry to improve, and that means getting better at the fundamentals. This doesn't mean you have to spend hours a day working on those things once you have a good hang of it, but you can implement it into your warm-up routine or carve out an hour or 2 per week to continue to grow in those areas. For instance, you can see in this video, I'm working on my fundamentals with gesture drawing. My gestures have gotten much better, but I still have a lot of room to grow. Now, I will say this, be happy with your art and be happy with your progress, but try to remain humble. Number 4, working in a vacuum. One of the hardest things to do is to get feedback on your art. It means you have to be vulnerable, and when we're vulnerable in any way, it's scary. But I would argue if you work without getting feedback from someone else within your skill level or above your skill level, you're doing yourself a disjustice. This also means that you have to be willing to hear the feedback and implement it within your own work. And as you get closer to becoming a professional in any field you're in, you're going to be receiving criticism on your work. And you have kind of a choice to make there. Either you accept it and you work on it, or you stay kind of headstrong and you don't do it and you probably end up getting fired, right? So if you're someone that doesn't like being vulnerable with your work or has a hard time taking criticism, I would recommend you start with people who might be an artist that you're close with, and then asking them to give you feedback in a gentle way. Then kind of progressively move into getting into feedback groups of random people on like Discord, or finding websites like Reddit where people are willing to kind of give you feedback on your drawings. Number 5, not solidifying a workflow. I have a video on this topic that I can link in the description, but finding a workflow that is best for you is vital to progress. For those of you who don't know what workflow is, it's the process that you follow in order to create a piece. For instance, a workflow could look something like this. Step 1, gather reference. Step 2, create a mood board. Step 3, thumbnailing the scene using the reference and mood board. Step 4, doing a rough sketch going off your chosen thumbnail. Step 5, solidifying the sketch. Step 6, line art. Step 7, lights and shading. Step 8, color. And step 9, final product or polish. You don't have to follow that exact workflow, it's just an example. The reason this is so important though is if you go about developing a piece of art differently every time you pick up a pencil or a pen, then you can't really expect consistent results, and you can't also pinpoint the area in which you need the most help in. If you solidify a workflow, there's going to be a lot of gains, right? First, you're going to be getting quicker at creating pieces, you will get a consistent result, and then you will also see improvement as time goes on because you're eliminating an issue that isn't related to technical skill, which is the actual steps that you take within the process of creating a piece. And finally, number 6, not properly observing. So this is related to my first and second points of this video, but when you are not drawing, you should really be thinking about how you observe the things around you. And the way that we kind of learn how to observe better is by gathering knowledge on these subjects. So for instance, when you're on a train or in class or something of that nature, on a bus, and you see someone stretching, are you really understanding what you're seeing? Do you see that their deltoids and their lats are flexing as they pull their arms above their head? Are you paying attention to the folds in the fabric of their hoodie as it bunches up in the areas of the joints that are bent? Do you see the line of action or the gestural flow from the top of their hand to the bottom of their glutes as they stretch out as far as they can? These are things that you can observe at any given point in time that will improve your understanding of art without even having to pick up a pencil. Alrighty. That's it, everyone. I really do hope that you enjoyed the video, and I hope that you learned something new. Thank you for watching. I hope you all have a great weekend. I'm Manga Mike, and I'm out.